One of the most effective ways to enact change is to show people your vision of the future, and Microsoft has done that recently with the Productivity Future Vision video, which some people are calling the 2019 video. And we've got Ian Sands here, your Director of Envisioning for Office Labs. And so you're the person behind this video, right? One of the people.
Exactly, one of the people behind it. Yep, I've got a talented team of designers and developers and business strategists and program managers that sort of help collectively to make these things happen. So.
And what spurred this video? What brought this along?
Well, we work with our technical thought leaders across the division, so very closely with our Quest owners. Who are also a big component to this video in terms of contributors. But we work with a wide variety of folks across the company, MS Research, other thought leadership groups within the company, like Craig Mundy's organization and others, to sort of cull the story together. And our team is sort of the helpful facilitators that kind of stitch the story together, and create the fabric by which we can go and kind of inspire and ideally produce materials that will create conversation and help us think about where our North Star objective sits and how we can all sort of work collectively to move towards that as an organization and company.
And you know, I've seen a couple of these videos in the past. How often do we do those?
So we've been doing these for about 5 years now. Originally, with a slightly different mission than the current mission of my group. We've kind of expanded and taken on a slightly different mission in the last 18 months. But we've done roughly one a year since starting the initiative, which was sort of originally intended to just help better articulate where we thought technology futures would go over the next 5 to 10 years, so that our customers, most importantly, would have a better idea of how Microsoft technology plays into their futures, and help us create a dialogue with our customers so that we can start to incorporate their feedback into our research and product planning efforts sooner in the cycle rather than later when we're going to beta and things like that. And about 18 months ago, we started really focusing our energy on MBD and the long-term vision for productivity, and as part of that, kind of corralled a few different efforts together to kind of coalesce how we define that vision.
So you dream up the future for the biggest software company in the world. That has got to be a pretty tall order. How exactly do you do that?
How do we do it? We've over the years have been honing our process. I mean, I mentioned customers, but customers really a critical component of that equation.
Yeah.
We need to understand where the opportunities are going to lie. We need to understand where the pain points exist. We really want to understand what our customers are experiencing, where the sort of outliers and white space lies in the ways that they're using technology and software today, and start to imagine how we can better create vision that applies to their needs. So it's really a very customer-centric, problem-centric beginning. We look at trends and shifts, socioeconomic, business, geographic trends like that, and use those as sort of part of our palette for what we draw upon. And then we look obviously at technology shifts and trends, and we work with Microsoft Research to really get in deep to the technology explorations going on there, as well as all of our product groups, Quest initiative, things like that, to really kind of wrap our heads around what's possible, what's plausible, what technology sort of roadmaps exist over that time frame. And then we also look broadly at what the industry's doing, where things are going, where our competitors are headed, and we use all that information to help us start to stitch together stories. We look for problems, and we identify which technologies are best suited to start addressing some of those problems. And then we have, obviously, fun brainstorming with lots of people around the company to kind of imagine inspiring, thought-provoking ways that we can start to illustrate what those futures might look like. And that's sort of the core of it. Yeah.
One of the comments that I saw on Long's site, I started something.com, was that this is Microsoft Vaporware. And on the one hand, it seems like, well, yeah, that's part of the idea behind this is, you know, these are the things that we are just dreaming up. On the other hand, these are things that are really getting into products today. So what things are going to come down the hill from what you've put together in this video?
So that, I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Obviously, we work really hard to ensure that the technology explorations that we're demonstrating within the videos and other work that we do are plausible, meaning they are happening to some level in research or with our customers or in other areas right now today. So there's nothing in there that's complete vaporware. There are creative liberties that we take once in a while to sort of extend the thinking and to project, okay, if that's possible today, let's take, for example, in the video, we see woman on the plane using a digital boarding pass. It's a very thin card. She's able to interact with the surface of it, but from underneath, so that she's not actually taking up precious real estate on small devices. Neat idea. A lot of people go, whoa, you know, that looks pretty far-fetched. It's actually based on a real MSR project, Lucid Touch and Nano
Yeah, we had a video on that on Channel 10 recently.
Which we, you know, all know internally is a very, you know, interesting, compelling exploration that's going on. Yes, today it's a little thicker, a little less sleek, but when we sit down and talk to those researchers and think, okay, 10 years from now, is this a viable way to articulate the potential of that technology? And so we do a lot of homework to make sure that there's really very little stretching the truth that we do. That's critical. And then, you know, I guess the second part is a lot of that's to be seen, right? We're working on, as an organization, Office Labs, on our partnership and close working relationship with the Office team and business division to help take the vision and move it into actual products. Incubations and concept tests are ways that we start to take those ideas and immediately test the hypotheses and get user feedback and understand whether some of these ideas are viable for the next release, 015, 016 and beyond, next waves of our products, so that we can begin to make that reality come true. And in many ways, the Office Labs organization is starting to see the fruits of those labors. Even in the 014 timeframe, we'll start to see some of that. So it is our sort of uber collective mission to develop long-term visions and then identify how and where with the product groups and with our Quest owners and with all the folks that we work with to sort of take those and make them real.
Yeah.
And we're even seeing some of the fruits of those labors come to life in other parts of Microsoft, not just in the business division. And we've had some interesting feedback from the Windows Mobile team.
So I watched the video with kind of a careful eye as to you know, what is in this video that wouldn't be possible with Windows 7 and multi-touch as it is today. And you know, set the hardware aside, that has its own path that it has to take.
Right.
But I didn't see anything that couldn't really be done with Windows 7 multi-touch and WPF.
Sure. Yeah, so from a user experience layer, that's something we think very hard about, because that's an area where we can start to immediately move towards some of the vision that we're developing. So that is purposefully thinking about applicability in the Windows 7 timeframe and the Windows 7 and WPF platform. And you're right, they're really, from just a software perspective, user experience perspective, there are many things that we could do right now today to start working towards that vision. Of course, the challenging part is the sort of interconnectedness of all these different scenarios across devices, across networks. There's a lot of sort of the technical underpinnings and sort of brains behind what you see on the user experience layer that are the hard work that we need to do as a company to move towards that vision. And that's really where you start to look at that 10-year time frame and beyond. And some of the work we'll be doing next in my team is really diving deep into those scenarios and articulating where the potential lies and what needs to happen to enable some of those more complex technological and software challenges that will come. But user experience-wise, sure, we can start moving towards this vision. And Win 7's awesome in the way that it'll help make that real.
Definitely. So is the idea behind the video to help inspire people at Microsoft or software developers in general or hardware manufacturers and partners, or all the above?
You know, ideally it's all of the above. I mean, really we've built the offering around the idea that we can use these materials to help rally the troops internally to sort of make more sense of our Quest initiative and make it real. Build something that helps our internal groups take ownership of that initiative and really start to think about what do we need to do, how do we need to work together to go build a vision. Mm-hmm. So we use them almost as a means to create conversation, right? It's a stake in the ground. It's something we can all look at. It beats you know, a bunch of white papers and 100 different PowerPoint decks.
Absolutely.
And in 5 to 6 minutes, we can kind of get a really good sense of what that might look like. Of course, then we want to have some good conversations about what do we actually want to do, what don't we want to do, what seems feasible, what doesn't, blah, blah, blah. That's all the primary intent. The nice sort of effect externally is that the work certainly is found to have value. An amazing number of things going on within Microsoft that we can better tell a story about. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the ways that I think we'll continue doing that and hopefully do more and more of that as a company.
So in the video, there was a little bit of voice recognition, but mm-hmm. A lot more focus on touch. Is that because the video wasn't narrated with speech, or was it just one of the ways that we see things going in the future? Well,
I think, to be fair, we probably have a lot of touch in there right now. It is, I think, one of the most prominent forms of natural user interface that people are exploring at this point in time. We've talked a lot about speech for years now, and mm-hmm. we do want to acknowledge that is a very important form of natural user interface. There's a lot of great work being done in that space. Amazing progress. If you went to TechFest this year, you probably were inspired by some of the progress that's been going on in that space, and that continues to be very viable. There's other forms, obviously. Gesture's another really compelling way that we want to think about natural user interface. But really, one of the key messages we're trying to depict in the video is that of course there'll still be keyboards, of course there'll still be mice, of course there'll be many of the sort of input devices that we have today, and some of those will evolve in very interesting ways. They're not just going to stay. The keyboard is one that, you know, keep your eyes on. There's some neat things going on there. But over time, we also see more and more of these natural user interfaces methods coming into play, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge some of those. And of course, touch is a really good one. It's a really natural way to interact with data and content.
So another thing that I think people notice first thing, and this is something that I've just seen a lot with recent Microsoft presentations and discussions, is there are displays everywhere. They're everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're on your body, they're on the walls, they're on the floor in front of you.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that. Is that really what we see being in the future?
So that is, and the reason why we see that is because the cost of displays is coming down at a rate where some folks, I don't usually go this far myself, but a lot of people like to discuss displays. Think of display as free, and what would you do with it? And I think that we're looking at so many different display types, from flexible, transparent displays to to new forms of OLEDs, to paintable displays, to MEMS displays. There's so many different display technologies being explored, and sort of the culmination of all these explorations continues to sort of keep us focused on a future where displays really do have the opportunity to be everywhere. And one of the ways I like to think about it is think about all the sort of posters and pamphlets and printed materials that you have today, leveraging display technology, whether it's e-ink or OLED or some other form. our environments, I mean, just walking down the halls in Microsoft, you see lots of posters and all those things. Imagine the day when it's actually cheaper for those to be displays than printed paper, and actually more effective because you can update it depending on the time of day or the people passing by. So there's so many things that displays will enable, and that sort of opportunity paired with the consistent drop in price of display technology should move us towards
an augmented reality. It's like a holodeck painted on reality.
It's all about the holodeck. Yeah.
Excellent. I'd love to hear that. I hope that's a future project.
Right.
So one of the other things that people tend to talk about in comments is the music from the video.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about
whistling.
that. Where'd you find the music for this?
It's all me humming.
Nice.
So you
songsmith.
It's hard to do, but it is songsmithing on the fly. Now the music, it's funny, the music, we've used the same composer for all of our videos. So if you go back to the first video we did 5 years ago, the Retail Future Vision, we used this composer, and we've leveraged him all the way along. What we're trying to do is sort of create a language, not only with the visual style and the directing and the cinematography of the videos, and the work, but also the language of music is really important. And so the composer is this guy named Mark Walk, who actually is a band member, part of Skinny Puppy. So
little bit different.
Yeah, a little different in style. Very talented guy. He's got a wide repertoire.
So Microsoft Envisioning, you might someday download the MP3 off Zune Marketplace.
Absolutely,
it'd
baby.
be really
you
popular.
never know. Mark would be flattered. I think some of us would be very surprised.
So on the one of the other things is the plane scene. So some people recognize that as a Dreamliner.
They would be accurate in that recognition. That is the
so you worked with
interior of the
Boeing and went over to Boeing and shot in a facade of a Dreamliner?
We did. So, as we talked about earlier.
It looks a little bit different from what I think we'll be in.
It is. It's a little, it's the Dreamliner mock-up that we were able to shoot in. It, little different, you're right, and some people, ironically, and almost amazingly, picked up this out there in the blogosphere. We've seen a couple comments where people have been arguing, is that the Dreamliner? No, it's not. If you look at this picture, the Dreamliner's got seat back displays, and this one doesn't, and they have some kind of special fold-out big display. I don't think it's the Dreamliner, but I think it is, back and forth. Well, it was the Dreamliner. We do, and someday we'll show you the behind-the-scenes making of kind of stuff, because we do quite a few things along the way to help tell the story. One of the stories that we want to tell is not old school, too far away from you, too small, embedded LCD displays in the back of seats. Of course, the section that we shot in was business class, which is even more of a distance to be interacting and using the display. So we used a little CG magic and rebuilt those seats and got rid of the displays.
And the passenger was reading a book, Cradle to Cradle, which is a book
done.
about doing more with less. So I imagine that was probably intentional.
Yeah, it just happened to be sitting there on the plane, so we grabbed it. And there it was. No, that was intentional. Subtle, but nicely picked up there.
But it was a paperback book.
It is, but it's actually not made out of paper. If you read the book, it's not paper. It's a plastic, it's a sort of recyclable, get it wet, throw it in the tub, whatever you need to do. It's actually not paper.
I thought it was kind of funny. She's, flipping through, for the most part, a paperback book with a digital bookmark, though.
Digital bookmark.
She had her boarding pass
her
as
boarding
the
pass.
bookmark in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just for fun. The future isn't all digital. We like to acknowledge that people are still going to use pen and paper. They're still going to probably read books, although Amazon would like to see the Kindle the most prominent form of book reading, which is great, but there will still be 10 years isn't that far out.
Well, in that respect, at the end of the video, we saw the guy with the newspaper, which was really interesting. Now, I saw that, and immediately I thought, well, that can't be e-ink, because, e-ink doesn't really do video or color or anything like that, and I don't see that happening. But OLED?
OLED, yeah, it's thin, flexible displays. I mean, that particular scenario is taking a lot of the technologies that we're seeing move progressively towards that kind of future, but also extending it a bit and taking some risks in terms of how that potentially comes together. There are a number of folks out there that think that that is a viable representation of where things could go, probably more in the OLED than e-ink at this point, although e-ink is a rapidly progressing technology and is in some circles thought of as potentially viable for those kinds of applications. But yeah, it's really that one's a bit of an extension. It's probably a 10+ year kind of thing. But
yeah.
You can imagine some small battery pack down embedded within the paper.
Well,
it's a little
even,
thicker,
I mean, they have
and
the things now where you can charge your phone by just setting it on it. I mean, you could even power
charging.
it by that.
Yeah, exactly. You keep it, pick it up, read it for a little bit, put it back down.
And it doesn't have to be a newspaper when you pick it up. It could be, blueprints or, web pages or whatever else you want to look at.
Right. So, and that was one of the reasons why we wanted to show that kind of form factor display type within the video, the ability to repurpose it. As he's sort of moving between his working from home life kind of productivity, reading the paper, getting done with his sort of morning routine, seamlessly moving into work mode, that same form factor is able to adapt itself and become a blueprint for some of the work that he just accepts and decides to work on that day through the task market. So.
Now, we saw another gentleman who was on the conveyor belt and was using a little portable device, which...
The conveyor belt, I like that. It's called a moving walkway.
The moving walkway. And so he was panning around. And so tell me a little bit about this. We're talking accelerometers and portable devices. We're talking being able to have the device know when you're walking so it doesn't scroll for you when you're on the moving walkway. But is that one of the things, the amalgamation of hardware and accelerometers and display and powerful portable devices and software, of
Absolutely.
course.
And today we see many of those technologies already in play, and some folks, in particular some of our competitors, doing some pretty interesting things with that kind of technology right now today. So as we sort of move forward with that, we see a smarter use of those technologies coming into play. We also, one of the important things we think about in that scene is that today we have a lot of these things at the ready, right? We have GPS, we have accelerometers, and we have small computers that fit in our pocket that have nice touchscreens and things like that. But the challenge that we have today is that we're still sort of up here, our brains, we're the hub of productivity. We decide when to use it, how to use it, what the best form to be contacting our friends and family and colleagues with. We're kind of doing a lot of workflow management and productivity management ourselves to decide how to use this device best.
Yeah.
One of the things we like to think about is where that goes over time to where we're able to use all these great technologies in a smarter, safer way so that we're not reading email at 60 miles an hour because that doesn't make sense. Or we're not standing in line at Starbucks. First thing in our queue is download this PowerPoint and provide me feedback. Perhaps it only pops up with things that are yes/no answers or approve expense reports or things like that. I'm at this point in time, I have this sort of availability, I'm not moving, blah, blah, blah. We can start to see some interesting scenarios where we're leveraging more machine learning and heuristics and all the other attributes that we have today to make smarter, more integrated contextual software experiences.
So you brought some software with you today. What are we going to take a look at here?
So this is basically an interactive demo that we've produced to help us break down, dive into, and go deeper on the vision. So one of the ways that we wanted to do that was allow us to play the video and kind of go all the way through that and see the video in all its glory, but then have a really nice way to sort of take that video and begin breaking it down, scene by scene. What was happening in that first scene? We've got two kids interacting on you know, one classroom is in India and the other classroom is in Sydney, and they're collaborating at this touch wall. And how are they doing that? What's the technology behind that? And so we wanted to create a way for us to kind of move through the video and expose some of the technologies behind it, prototypes that we've been working on within Microsoft Research, our product groups, and so on and so forth, to sort of make that vision come to life, and also allow us to really discuss how those concepts might come to fruition. So, for example, last year we worked on a prototype couple, actually, touch wall, which is really just the leveraging of multi-touch surface in a vertical display, kind of thinking about low-cost, sort of Win 7-like scenarios that we could leverage to sort of bring our whiteboards and things like that into the digital age. And the second component of this was looking at the software. What kinds of software might we want to present information, organize our digital information, much more like we would in our real life on a, you know, sort of visual topography. And so actually the software that we played with here and that you see Bill Gates demonstrating is actually the same software that we built this presentation tool in, that allows us to kind of organize things.
So instead of just going through slide by slide like you would a PowerPoint deck, this allows you just to have a more natural conversation with the group and kind of float between the different things that you want to show them.
Exactly, exactly. And one of the other big points is allow us to just point to content, not rebuild, copy, paste, repurpose content and add bullets. If we have existing assets that we want to leverage, we just point to those and pull them into the canvas, or just drag and drop them in. We tried to make that sort of interface really simple, so I can even move over to edit mode, and I can take an object and say I want to make that object bigger, or move that object around. Then I should be able to do that in sort of really intuitive ways. And ideally, my changes here I can get rid of so I don't screw up the presentation, although it's no big deal. So I can go back to presentation mode, and I can go and activate these objects. So in this case, maybe I just pointed to a folder on my hard drive. It had a bunch of images in it. If I point to a folder, those will come up as a stack, so I can just kind of sift through those things in their current form, rather than having to copy paste each one and sort of figure out how I can tile all those onto a screen nicely. So trying to think about how we take some of the designer out of building presentations. Obviously, this particular presentation is sort of designed, but to a certain extent thinking more about the content than the shell and the wrapper and the colors of the fonts and things like that, and thinking more about just organizing your content in ways that will enable you to go have a good conversation.
Yeah, and the great thing as a presenter is it gives you the freedom to move across the things that you know you want to talk about and just touch on them as you want to. I mean, one of the horrible things is you want to talk about a slide that's at the end of your deck, and you have to, you know, reveal your cards and show through to get to that, and then you got to go back, and it just stops everything.
Right, and the funny thing is oftentimes those are the better presentations, because they're natural. They're not forced. They're a conversation. You're allowing for feedback. You're changing up your presentation.
An unbroken stream of thought.
It's an unbroken stream of thought. The funny thing is that the software makes the audience uncomfortable because they think that isn't quite right. Like he was actually not going to talk about this now, which is kind of funny, because
things have gone awry in this presentation.
Right, making the wrong people uncomfortable, rather than just kind of gliding over and choosing that thing that you want to go and discuss, and then sort of move back more organically to support that conversation. The other thing is, you know, thinking about different things that you can embed here. We have support for things like web pages. So obviously, one of the amazing underlying technologies under the video is going to be the work that that we're doing with the Azure platform. And here, I can just go right out to the web page, and now I'm on the internet, and that's kind of a fairly seamless way to move in and out of different content types. And now I'm back in the presentation. Obviously, videos are easy to embed.
That's great.
And different content types. And then you think about some content types. I'm actually, well, let's see if this graphic is one of those. I'm not sure that it is, but I don't know that we put any in this presentation, but we have in the past looked at things that don't fit on a slide, the stuff you can't read. Like if only that Visio flowchart I could actually see. Well, with the WPF platform that we built this on, of course, we can just kind of infinitely zoom into that.
So like you could just deep zoom right into a huge Visio
yeah, if you
chart.
want to look. I mean, you can do it on this stuff, but this isn't raster, so it breaks down. But obviously you can leverage those technologies.
Or you could even have like a gigapixel image here if you're going to do a deep zoom into it anyway.
Yep, exactly. So the goal of the presentation, really, this particular presentation, really is not just to advertise some of the cool research that we're doing in Office and in Office Labs to sort of look at different paradigms for user experiences, but really just to allow folks like Stephen Elop did a couple weeks ago at the Wharton conference to go through the video, drill into to the different details of the video, and identify which technologies are going to be enabling that. And then ultimately, we also have sort of PowerPoint-like ability to kind of cycle through step by step, so you can have keyframes or next. What that allows us to do is kind of step through the whole presentation, dissect it, and then obviously here what we're trying to do is bubble that back up to what is our vision. What are the key innovation areas that we're looking at? Things like authoring and editing and organizing digital content. One of the things we think about is what happens when you become more of an orchestrator than an author. What does that mean? Today we do a lot of sort of authoring of different things. We're sort of the center of the content development, but as we think about the sort of broadening of our collaboration tools and social networks and things like that, the way we author might change, and so we're starting to think about things like that. But this really allows us to walk through and kind of go through those ideas in detail, starting with the video as sort of the first way that we want to start to dissect the vision, and then bubble it up to what are the innovation areas we're looking at, and sort of what key tenets do those then go up to. Things like expressions, connections, insights. These are sort of the core clusters that we are focused on. They align to what we're doing in Wave 14 and beyond, and they'll help us kind of continue to develop the roadmap of ideas as we move towards the big goal of reimagining productivity.
Thank you so much for coming out and giving us the inside scoop on what's going on behind that video, and can't wait to see what you dream up next.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It was fun to be here and fun to chat. And yeah, let us know if you want the greatest hits CD of Mark Walk's work.
We do. And what
them.
website should people go to keep an eye on stuff like this?
So go to officelabs.com or internally Office Labs, and lots of cool stuff going on.
Officelabs.com.
Thank you.